Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Tom Ross, Group Operations Director at everyone's favourite hotel brand, The Pig. Coming up on today's show, Tom demonstrates that he has his priorities in exactly the right place.
So I went back to my boss and I said to him, I'm really sorry, but if I don't take my wife to this, I am up for a divorce.
Phil makes his play for the number 10 hot seat. So we've got to take control. Oh, God, it sounded like Boris. And Tom hints that he may have some interesting stories. Have you got any funny stories that you can share with us? All that and so much more as we chat through Tom's fantastic story and journey to date. Tom chats with amazing energy and passion throughout, and his story is another indication of what you can achieve when you find that passion and get your head down and crack on. Next week we'll mark our 100th episode, and we've got something a little bit special lined up, so don't forget to like, subscribe and review on whatever podcast platform you're listening. It really does make a massive difference. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. Today I am delighted to welcome someone to the show who's built themselves a rather tidy career so far, culminating in him taking the reins as the Group Ops Director at everyone's favourite hotel brand, The Pig. I am, of course, talking about the wonderful Tom Ross. Welcome to the show.
I've never been called the wonderful Tom Ross before. I like that. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, Phil.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. You can take that forward with you if you want and just tell everybody that you're now the wonderful Tom Ross.
Yeah, I'll get it printed on my card. And then, on bottom of my email as well, yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? When you win an award, it's usually because somebody's identified something in you that you haven't necessarily been working towards yourself, but when you kind of give yourself that award, it takes on a whole different meaning, doesn't it?
I've never won an award. I always seem to miss out on them. So
Really? Well, there's still plenty of time. Plenty of time.
It doesn't. It's not. I'm not better or anything. It's not.
I had it actually down here that you were on the Boutique Hotelier's Power List of 2017. Is my research false?
I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say. Maybe that's not an award. That's not an award. I'm thinking an award is. I want a trophy. I want something tangible. Right. I want to be standing somewhere, raising a trophy above my head. So.
Got you. Okay. Well, a list is at least an acknowledgement that you're doing something right. Anyway, probably shouldn't talk about this all day. But anyway, how are you anyway?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Yeah, back in the office and nice and busy, really. I don't even want to start talking about COVID, and everyone starts off the same way, don't they? But I was at a couple of events in London yesterday and the day before, and it just felt strangely normal. An event for 170 people, everyone crowded in.
Yeah.
It was a great time. Yeah.
Everyone coughing and sneezing over everyone else and just getting on with it.
It was a good night.
Yeah, I actually put on an event in London about a month ago, and it was the same, actually. The atmosphere in the room was absolutely electric. Like, we are so happy to be back doing this. Everybody was just delighted to be kind of let off the leash a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's. I spoke to someone. He said I was even excited about going to a conference. It's like I think everyone's just really up for it. But it's very. I find going from the hotels into somewhere like London really, really strange. Because in those events in London, like no one's wearing masks, no one's distancing, and yet still, I'm not sure whether it's just to do with location, but still within the hotels, we're seeing people being quite cautious and still kind of following some of those patterns that we've seen emerge over the last 18 months. So I think we're in that really difficult time now where no one's quite sure what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Everyone becomes a little bit judgmental and we just need to crack on our own way a little bit, don't we?
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? You're either one thing or another. There cannot be anything in between. That's basically the way that the world seems to debate stuff now.
Yes. Yeah. It's becoming a little more polarized every day, isn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, as you say, let's park the COVID stuff. That's been done to death. Actually, I shouldn't probably say that. That's terrible. But
so I shouldn't laugh either, actually.
No, indeed, we're both going straight to hell.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I mean, I obviously said at the top of the show that you are the group ops director at the Pig. You didn't walk into that role. There was a lot probably went on beforehand. So maybe you could take us all the way back and just give us a kind of insight into how did you get into hospitality in the first place?
I was quite literally born into it.
Really? Right.
So yeah, my parents had hotels and restaurants in Bath, and they had met at Bristol University and ended up working for two kind of legendary people in that area at the time. So there was a guy called George Perry Smith who ran a very famous restaurant called the Hole in the Wall.
Okay.
And there was a hotel called Thornbury Castle run by a gentleman called Kenneth Bell. And they were the sort of iconic chefs of their time. So my parents ended up working for them and then went into business with one of them, with Kenneth.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think my mum was working the night before I was born. And then, in our industry, particularly in a family owned business, you don't sort of have a huge amount of time off or maternity leave or anything like that. So, I mean, my cot was in the ladies' loo at the first restaurant. And I used to just sort of waitresses would come in and check on me occasionally. And so, yeah, I literally grew up in the industry, and
you literally did.
I literally did. Yeah.
Like in the toilets. You grew up in the toilets.
Well, I graduated from there eventually. And like anyone who grows up in any industry, it gives you, it's not really an insight. It's part of your makeup, and you're lucky enough to understand things that other people have to take time to learn. So,
yeah,
my time, when I get home from school, you just go and sit on the side in the kitchen, and the chefs are working, and you kind of absorb that energy. So I was very lucky to grow up in the industry, but never sort of had any idea of pursuing it. So I went to, actually, the first job I had was at 18, I went up to London, and I mean, it's quite reckless now. My children are coming up for 18, or one of them now.
Right.
And the thought of sending them off on their own to London absolutely terrifies me. I don't know what they'd get up to. But anyway, I worked at a place called the Chicago Rib Shack, which was a really kind of cool restaurant of its time, owned by an amazing entrepreneur called Bob Payton. And he had the Chicago Rib Shack, the Chicago Pizza Pie Factory. So anyway, I managed to get a job there, loved it, worked there for 6 months behind the bar. And it was it was so much fun and challenging and exciting. And I think we might get onto this later, but talking about how we keep people in our industry and the reputation that our industry has got. I'm just sick and tired of talking about the bad reputation our industry has. There are elements that are bad, I'm sure, probably like any industry, but there are so many places that do cool stuff, and it's a cool, fun industry to be involved in, and we don't talk about it enough.
Here. That's exactly why you and I are having this talk just now. It's that it's regrettable. This is just the way of the world. This kind of comes back to the just the way things are, like the polarization of debate, etc., etc. But it's only ever the stuff that people are doing badly that gets the airtime in the press.
Yeah.
So we've got to take control. Oh God, sounded like Boris. We've got to, as an industry, we have to take control of the message of. Of course, as per any sector, there are always people who do things badly. Let's not give them any airtime. Let's not give them any air out of our lungs, or at least if we are, let's shoot them down. Let's make sure that they're being lambasted for doing things badly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sort of slightly a martyr feel, isn't there, of closed shop, like we're not going to stitch anyone up because they're really well known, and I kind of get that, like I'm not out here to stitch someone up, but at the same time, if someone's doing something really badly wrong for our industry, then they should be called out on it. There's a load of people complaining they can't get any staff that don't necessarily have the best reputation. Anyway, so where did I get to? Oh yeah, so no intention of going to work in the industry. I was temping in London because I went to uni in London, and I wasn't really nothing had hooked me. Right. And so I said to my parents, like, I think I'm going to give the hospitality thing a crack. And they were so against it.
Really?
They sold their hotel about 2 years prior. Like, there was never any kind of discussion of, kind of the family business, because I think they thought I just completely wasn't interested. Anyway, I turned around and said, let's I can have a go at this. Where should I interview? And being from a small sort of family-run business, my dad suggested I suppose not. I was going to say similar, but not similar, but also smaller businesses that were family-run, or there was an owner-operator.
Yeah.
So one was the Goring. He said this is the the preeminent place in London. It's fabulous, etc. And there's this other place down in Winchester, and it's this guy. He's doing things. It feels a little bit untraditional, but everyone's talking about it, and it's called the Hotel du Vin. So I went for an interview at the Goring, and the staff there were still wearing coat, tails, top hat and tails almost. And I thought, Christ,
I think they do still do that today.
Well, luckily enough, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't see anyone wearing it. I was looking out for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, I know. Yes, but it has that reputation, doesn't it? So I was interviewed there, and then I went down to Hotel du Vin, and the general manager met me, and probably because Robin, was familiar with my parents, but I was just welcomed straight away. The general manager came, he sat me down, we had a chat, and boom, I was working there. I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks later, and we were beasted. It was in a great way. I know everyone talks about the hours and so on, but you'd work 80 hours a week. I probably shouldn't say that, but anyway, this is a long time ago. I was paid £9,000 a year, and I loved it. I loved every single bit of it, and all my friends were up in London working in the city and so on, and I still couldn't have been happier.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? I mean, look, if you ever want to get ahead in whatever you're doing, sorry to tell you, but you're going to have to work hard to get there. You cannot get there on luck and just waiting for something to happen. So that probably means that you've got to kind of put yourself out there a little bit in terms of the hours that you keep in terms of making your work done. And I'm not suggesting for a second, as you say, that doing 80 hours a week is right, and it's definitely not sustainable. But if you're doing something that you really, really love, then those 80 hours don't feel like you're working.
Yeah.
They feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I'm sure looking back on it, you forget actually that, no, you were bloody knackered. You were thinking, Christ, I can't do this again. But anyway, it was great fun. It was great fun. And then I still had a bit of an urge to travel a bit, or just to do something different. And I called a guy who used to work for my parents, who ran a hotel in the States, and I asked him how I could work in the States. What did it require? He said, well, if you come and work for me, I'll get you a visa. So I was like, oh, great. Okay. So I went to
Easy
Robin. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was in those days. Yeah. And
right.
I think it still is, actually. So I went to Robin and I said, I'm going to move on. And I was expecting him to say, no, you must stay. And he sort of said, no, go. It'd be good for you. Spread your wings. And I thought, oh, shit. Oh, sorry. I'm probably not supposed to swear.
No, you're right. You're right.
Cut that bit out.
That's fine. I just tick a box on Apple that says explicit, and then we're covered.
All right. So now I can really let loose, can I? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just go for it. Be yourself.
Oh, you don't hear that. So yeah, Robin really encouraged me to go, and it's a life lesson that I've remembered, is that we employ young people, and we can't hold on to them forever. We need to give them everything that they can have with us, and set them up. And I would encourage people to move on. And he said keep in touch. Anyway, so then I went to the States. I went to North Carolina. I had to see where North Carolina was on the map on the back of the aeroplane seat. I arrived there, and it's this Relais Chateaux property, 5-star, just outside a place called Chapel Hill in North Carolina. And it was nothing that I'd ever worked in before. But there were a small group, because this guy, the general manager, had worked in England. There was a small group of Brits there, and we just had the best time.
Right.
I think I've been lucky enough at a few points in my career to have worked in places where there's just a really nice group of people. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily luck. It's because of the type of business you work for, the type of people they employ. But I think there's also an element of it's just the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
And they're still, how long ago is that now? It's 21 years ago. Still best friends. Still we get on so well. But the beauty of it in America is that they love the English, and the accent. So it was just easy peasy.
Well, I can tell you that having a Scottish accent takes that to a whole different level.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like you. I did that quite young. At university in my second year, I went and did a student exchange over to a little place in New Jersey called Lavalette,
Okay.
and worked directly for the owner of he was a local entrepreneur. He had a couple of restaurants, a couple of motels, and I was just a general dog's body, and I absolutely loved it. Worked myself to the bone, but learned so much from just 6 months of graft and the like. But what that does for you, I don't think you can ever put a kind of price on, or you can't really quantify what an experience like that does for you as a human being.
100%. And we were just discussing it recently, actually, because I'm not going to say kind of in my day, but it seems that in my day,
Yeah.
people, you'd go and travel, right? And I always used to say to people, the brilliant thing about our industry is that if you can get a visa there, you can work anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Just pick. You want to go and work in the Maldives? I don't know if you can go and work in the Maldives, but pick someone that's beautiful, amazing, that you want to go and see, and then just apply to a hotel there, apply to a restaurant there, and it's
Yeah.
just so easy. And yet, so few people kind of take that option. And yeah, I have to say, actually, I'm sure the general manager who was there at the time won't hear this anyway, but it was just a really easy job.
Right. We do have a listenership in the US, so
Okay. Well, Richard at the hotel will hopefully not hear anyway. But it because of its sort of 5-star nature, and it was quite kind of laid back. So we all had every Monday off in the restaurant, and I think from memory it was like every Sunday night. So and it would it's sort of regional US, so everyone was in bed by 10 o'clock. So afterwards,
right.
every night was out to the bars. People were in apartment complexes with pools. It was just perfect. We had a great time. Anyway, then I was fortunate enough to meet my wife there, who is American,
Right.
and we decided that we wanted to go and work in California. Well, actually, no, what we did, again, we just got that. There used to be a book, a Relais Chateaux book, and it had all of the hotels in the world in. And you would just go through and be like, oh, that looks nice. Where's that? Let's go and work there.
Yeah, I even think they used to put like the email address of the general manager in it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's good recruitment tool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah,
I'll
and they
make a
don't
note
do
of
that
that,
anymore.
actually. Yeah. I'll write that down. So I was lucky enough to get a job at a place called the Auberge du Soleil, which is a beautiful Relais Chateau property in the top of the Napa Valley. Not quite the top of the Napa Valley, in St. Helena, I think. In terms of recruitment, again, so this was for like an assistant restaurant manager position.
Right.
They flew us out from North Carolina to Napa.
Wow.
Junior suite for 2 nights, interviewed, eating in the restaurant. I mean, they really kind of went to town. And we always encourage our teams internally to make sure that whether you're going to offer someone the job or not, that you treat every person that responds to an advert as though you want to employ them, and you kind of roll out the carpet. But it makes me realize that we could all do so much more, and we're all guilty of it. And I'd hold my hand up and say that. But if they can fly someone out there, why can't we make sure that we're on time for an interview? The number of times that you hear about, oh, the person who's interviewing me was late.
Yeah.
Or and it's just little things like that, I think.
Yeah, and do you know the funny thing about this is that I've had a couple of conversations very recently about the very same thing. Like this is, and probably this has just been brought back into the front of people's minds because of the fact that we find ourselves in a situation whereby we're, it's a struggle to find people. So what you have to do in moments like that is really knuckle down on the detail and make sure that you're doing every single possible thing that you can control, as well as you can do. And actually that's that simple thing of making somebody feel like they belong there before they've even, taken a job with you, whether they get the job or not, that power that has in terms of what that does for your brand perception with that individual, they're going to go and say, oh, do you know what? I'm gutted I didn't get that job.
Yes.
They're going to tell all their mates, and their mates are going to go, oh, maybe I want to go and work there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's such a simple concept. And you're right, there's so many people pay lip service to it.
Absolutely. And also I think, and again, I think everyone always needs to look to improve. And I think we're reasonably good at it. Could we be excellent? Yes, we could. How could we do that? We could make sure that we really train all of our people that are interviewing properly. We revisit it. We give them the tools to make sure that the people coming for interview feel special. All of these types of things. And even sitting here now talking about it, I'm thinking to myself, oh, right, actually, that really is something that we could do better.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm basically a business consultant podcast now as well.
So we packed up our van. We had 2 cats and a dog. We were all ready to go.
Right.
And they called we drove across America in a U-Haul van, 3 days straight across.
Right.
But they called
that
just
would have
before.
Been cool in itself.
Well, it's cool if you're in some sort of nice vehicle and spend 3 weeks going across it. We were in like a U-Haul van, smashing out 12 hours a day and sleeping in a Motel 8. It's
right.
Certainly not the romantic picture you have in your mind.
Yeah.
So they called the day about a week before we were supposed to go, and they said, "Oh, your paperwork is not through, so you can still have the job, but we're just going to pay you half the amount because you can't be a manager on a visa that you're on."
Right.
And I was like, "No, thanks." In hindsight,
it'd be nice to have known that before.
Yeah. Well, in hindsight, I think they just realised they made a mistake and didn't want me, and it was just a kind of way of getting out of it. But anyway, so we still had a flat, and we had we were all set up ready to go. So we just cracked on and went out there. And my wife had a job at another amazing hotel in the area called Meadowood, and I got my Relais book out again, and there was a restaurant there that people were talking about, and I went and knocked on the door and I said, "Have you got any jobs?" And they said, "Yeah, the students have just left, so you can come and do some part-time work." And I said, "Well, I've sort of done this a bit before, and I'd really like to work full-time." And they were like, "Oh, okay, let's see how it goes." And it was a restaurant called the French Laundry, and it was, I didn't really know about it then, and it was just the most incredible experience.
When are we? What? Not to give your age away or anything like that, but roughly what time frame are we in?
I was there from early 2001 till beginning of 2004.
Right. Okay.
It won Best Restaurant in the World 2002, 2003.
Right.
Certainly nothing to do with me, but I've got the
rubbish.
I've got the T-shirts to prove it.
Yeah, you played your part. You've definitely played
carried a few
plates. All team members play the part.
But in terms of, and again, it's like it's a really important lesson for me that I try and pass on to people when you're talking to them. Nowadays everyone's so immediate, aren't they? I've worked for a week as a waiter. I want to be a supervisor. I've done supervisory stuff now for 2 weeks. I think I should be the manager. And you're like, hang on, you're 21. You only arrived yesterday. It's quite disrespectful to the career waiter who 20 years ago would have been a career waiter that you think you can do this job in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But all that aside, my job was as I started there was a runner. And that meant that you were across the path from Thomas Keller, who's the chef owner.
Yeah.
And you learned to treat everything to the highest level as he did. But you also saw the food, you also saw how it was put together, you saw the care and attention that was taken. And I was there at a time where, I think Thomas before had a bit of a reputation as a bit of a tyrant, but certainly when I was there, I never saw anything. And I think he kind of settled down a bit. But he was a very considerate and kind individual, and that rubbed off on the rest of the team. There were no egos there. There was no one bitching and moaning.
Who'd have thought, that the people kind of respond to the type of leadership that's being passed on to them.
It's a crazy thought, isn't it?
Yeah, God.
But it was really inspirational. Like everyone wanted to do it better, and it was. I describe it like trying to sort of roll a really big boulder. Like once you've got that big boulder going, it's great. It just keeps on rolling. And anyone that gets in its way, it kind of squashes or spits out the side. So occasionally you get a new member of staff that would come in and they didn't fit the mold in terms of they thought they were too good or they didn't care. And they just, not through anyone being nasty, but they just didn't kind of last.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, again, it was a great, great place to work, great time. And it just such a nice. Laura Cunningham, who was the GM there, is just the nicest person. Always looked out for everyone. Was brilliant at what she did, and still does. They all still do it. And even when it was probably about 12 or 13 years after I'd left, there was the pop-up. The French Laundry did a pop-up at Harrods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. I didn't get a seat, but I do remember it.
Wow. So if only I'd known you then, Phil, I could have sorted you out, I think. So
Yeah.
so
Well, there we go.
my
Next time. Next
yeah,
time.
yeah, next time, yeah. My boss at the time said, "Oh, if you can get us a table for two, I'll take you." So I was like, "Okay, well," so I got in contact with someone that used to work there, and she was like, "Yeah, of course you can have a table for two." And I was like, "Wow, that's incredible." So I
Yeah.
went back to my boss and I said to him, "I'm really sorry, but if I don't take my wife to this, I am up for a divorce. So you have the tickets, have a great time, but I can't go." And he said, "Well, I tell you what, if you take the tickets, and if you can get another two, I'll pay for it all anyway."
Oh,
So I got back in
nice.
touch. Yeah, really nice. Yeah, another nice employer. So,
Yeah.
so I got back in touch with them, and I said, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I don't suppose you could. It's not another table for two. They're like, "Yeah, no problem at all." So anyway, my wife and I went along, and I remember at the time there was, I don't know, there's probably like 10 tables, and we walked up there, and the GM who I used to work with he was a runner with me in California. He was there. They met us at the bar, a few glasses of fizz beforehand, taken into the dining room, and there were a kind of how shall I describe it? There was a mixed bag of people in there, from a couple of very well-known restaurateurs that I knew to a couple of sort of city boys with dubious-looking partners
Yep.
with them,
Say
and
no more.
say
Yep.
no more. And anyway, we were shown to this probably the best table in the room. And then Thomas came out of the kitchen and sat down and chatted for about 15 minutes, and you could see everyone like really, we were still quite young, and I think no one could kind of quite work out why. Anyway, we had a wonderful lunch. The food just kept coming. You kept coming. All the wine. It was lunchtime, and I was like, "We just have a couple of glasses of wine because we've got to travel back."
Yeah.
And honestly, they just didn't stop bringing a wine with every course. And at the end of the meal, they told us that all of the wine, I mean, it was hundreds of pounds worth. Not that I drunk that much; it was very good quality wine in small amounts.
Mm. Yeah.
Was
Whatever.
all
I believe you.
yeah
Yeah.
was all on the house. And
Oh,
I had worked there for 12 years. I left as I was the maitre d' when I was there. So I'm in no way a kind of big part of that jigsaw. In fact, I'm a tiny part of that jigsaw. There's loads of people that have worked at the laundry, but it's just that
that's
generosity, and it goes on
proper
and on.
hospitality, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
That it's kind of timeless.
it is. And you know what? We all talk about being brilliant at hospitality for the guests. What more can we do? What more can we do? And sometimes we overlook our teams. I think we're very good at it actually at the Pigs, but I think sometimes we kind of overlook those that we should do it most for.
Mm.
Anyway, so I had a fabulous time there. Then we decided to come back to the UK, and I was interviewing at the Four Seasons, the new one in Hampshire, and at the same time, Robin was just kind of keeping me warm. Let's meet for a coffee. I hear you back in town, and I ended up going back to Hotel du Vin instead of the Four Seasons. It
Right.
felt a more natural fit for me.
Yeah.
And
But that's half the battle, isn't it? About actually finding what sings to you rather than. I mean, you've got to go out and try. Of course, you've got to go out and try the different brands. But actually, when you feel like you've found your home, then why consider anything else?
yeah, absolutely, no, I couldn't agree more. And like you knew what you were getting with Robin. It's a successful brand. It was it was interesting. You knew that so you have this balance, right? Of I could be a hotel director at the Four Seasons, when I'm like 55 or 60, and it'll be a
Yeah.
wonderful job, and it'll be a great journey, and you'll learn a huge amount. But you're in it kind of for the long game, and you'll never meet any of the kind of main team. Of this kind of decision makers, the board level, all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. Or you can go back, and you're not going to get a lot of the things that you would have got at the Four Seasons, but you will get to sit down and have a lunch with Robin, and he'll help you with your career, or you'll see things much earlier than you might have seen them before.
Hmm.
Anyway, 6 months later, he called me and someone else in and said, "I've just sold the business." And I was like, "Oh, bloody hell."
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to the Four
yeah,
Seasons. Damn you.
yeah.
Yeah.
They'd offered to fly us back out to the States, actually, to do our
Right.
training out there. Anyway, so I stayed on and opened 2 or 3 hotels for them. I moved to Tunbridge Wells, then I opened at Cheltenham. And, the company was, I'm not going to diss the company, because I think actually the transition was quite good, but it was, we were just expanding rapidly, and it was just time for a change for me.
Yeah.
And an ops role came up in Oxford, because I felt I was kind of ready for an ops role. And you always feel you're ready. You're never quite ready, are you? Because otherwise you wouldn't be going for that job.
Yeah.
And I had a great time. I ran 3 hotels in Oxford. 2 hotels and 3 restaurants in Oxford for Jeremy Mockford, which was, it was a great time. They're really, a very sort of, in a small town, a great variety of businesses, from a 1,000-seater restaurant, 1,000-cover restaurant, they do in a day, to a really smart hotel and a really great restaurant up the road. So, and then I decided that we should move back to family, and it was one set of grandparents. So we were either going to go to the States again, to my wife's family, or back to Bath.
Yeah.
And so we decided to go to Bath, and I found a hotel that was just there. I know, it was not me. I wanted to go. We were going to go to Charleston. My wife wanted to live in the UK. I couldn't bloody believe it.
Grass is always greener, though, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, certainly when it's cold and rainy here. Yeah. Anyway,
it's definitely greener.
Yeah. So I got this business plan together for this hotel that I'd found, and I'd always, from a young age, harbored interest of doing something myself, but never had quite the balls really to do it. And I think a true entrepreneur, you've got to feel it in your bones. You've really, it's all very well sort of saying I want to do it, but I have a great respect for anyone that properly puts their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was up for this now, and I did this business plan. I sent it to Robin, and it was a lot of money. It was like 3 million quid or something. This hotel. I haven't got a penny. So I said,
well, that can't be a bit of ambition.
Yeah, absolutely, a blind ambition. So I sent the business plan to Robin and said, could you just have a look at it and tell me what you think? And he wrote back, he's like, yeah, I think it's good, but I think, my experience is that your buy-in price for a property probably needs to double. So I think you're probably looking at about 5 to 6 million for this. Right. I was like, right, okay, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. And
do you know anyone?
Well, so I said to him, I don't suppose you'd like to invest. He said, no, I've got this place called The Pig, and I'm when I'm in something, I'm focused on it. And from the outside, we all saw what The Pig was doing. So by that point, it had been open like 2 years, and I'd been there and I'd been to try it out. But I knew who the hotel director that was there. I knew they weren't moving anywhere. I knew there wasn't any kind of other options. So I was like, all right, okay. So I left the meeting with Robin, and I thought, Christ, what am I going to do? Because I don't know where to get 6 million quid. And Robin called back the next day. I was like, oh, hello. He said to me, I'm not phoning you for any sort of investment in your business, but I couldn't tell you at the time, but we were just literally signing on a hotel in Bath, and would you like to come on board and be the hotel director for that? And so I had this kind of like serendipitous moment where we'd taken the decision to move back to Bath. We had nothing. I had no job. I had 3 kids. We had, just sold a house. Like, we had nothing, like literally nothing. And I feel just incredible
being laid on your plate.
Yeah. So immediately having to think about where am I going to get 6 million quid sort of went to the bottom of the list, and I'll have that job. Thanks very much. And I've been here ever since. And I've been, again, I'm in that situation where there's an amazing group of people that work here. I've worked, and I know that sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? You're not going to get on with everyone in a 1,000-person business, but the core of the business has always been about the people. Robin's always, that's what he bangs on about every single day. And I think that shows in the type of people that work here. And, I think within this sort of senior group, the number of years that they've worked for Robin combined is extraordinary.
Yeah, that kind of tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
Totally. And it's well into the kind of like hundreds of years. And we find, people talk a lot about recruitment and retention and so on. And we had a sort of, our HR director actually brought it up, and it was a kind of epiphanous moment where he was like, hang on. Like, we're concentrating on these people that are leaving. We know people are going to leave our business. You are always going to get churn, and you're out of 20%. The kids that come in and they're only ever going to work for a year.
Yeah,
we're never going to, and we shouldn't be trying to. I was going to say save them. Save them is the wrong word. We shouldn't be trying to keep them for longer than they're naturally going to stay for. But what we need to really do is focus on anyone that's done 18 months with us, 2 years. Then why would someone like that leave our business? And that's the question we had to ask ourselves, because. I know that people say, oh, someone's left their job because of, X. And, we do kind of these exit surveys and ask people, the reason they left, and there's always something put down. But if you were really, really, really happy in a job, there are other things that you would change in your life before moving your job.
Yeah.
And so, we focus a lot on that in terms of the retention of those of 2 years and above. And actually, the number of people here that have been 5 and 10 years, we give a little anniversary present on 5 and 10 years, and it ends up costing us a fortune each year because in a brilliantly happy way, because people have been here so long. So anyway,
Yeah.
that was a long version of my career, but
yeah, wasn't that long. I've had longer. Don't worry.
It's time to wrap up now, is it? Thanks,
thanks for
bye.
coming on the show. Yeah. Cheers. Bye. Yeah, but I think that's absolutely bang on the money. It's what I suppose everybody should really be looking at. And this actually comes back to the point we're talking about when you were working for Thomas Keller, about the fact that he had this kind of serenity that was passed down to everyone else. That was kind of the atmosphere. And that's, you then put yourself into the position that you are now, where you're working for Robin, who places such collateral in the people. And who'd have thought that having that kind of focus would get you a reputation whereby people out there would go, oh, I want to go and work there because they care about the people. It's I find it baffling when the companies forget that, and it just becomes far too focused on pound signs.
Yeah, just to go back to something you said, I never described Thomas as serene. Let's
You're
just
right,
be clear
you
about
didn't.
that. It wasn't serenity, I can tell you.
That was just my the dream that I'd built about the type of guy that he was going to be, and
No, he was
and all.
but he was very, very focused. And I think everyone of course, everyone operates in different ways, right? But I really like to be challenged, and
Yeah.
there are times when you'd have to walk out of it at the end of service, and you just wanted to, put a dent in the side of your car with your shoe because you were so frustrated, probably because you'd done something wrong.
Yep.
And it was just that sense of, all wanting to try and achieve the best. And then just going back to the point about, why more employers do not focus on the culture within the company. I think that, even those that do, and I think we really do, we need to make sure that everyone else is capable of doing it within the business. And, yes, we all talk about it, but, I know we make mistakes, and I know that, that there are situations within the business when we don't get it right. And I think rather than just ignore those and say, oh, well, that's, that doesn't happen very often, we almost need to take for granted that the normal thing, the great thing, should be done every single day, right? It should be, but in a way it shouldn't even be celebrated, because that's just the norm.
Yeah.
And we should challenge the times when we don't get it right, and then we should applaud the times that someone does something absolutely brilliant and goes over and above, and we're like, oh wow, that was, because I think all of the people that I've worked for, and it's because of the nature of the size and type of the business, I suppose, but individuality and creativity is encouraged. I suspect in like really big property, if you come up with something that's slightly sort of out of the, off the manual, but then you're slapped down quite quickly. Whereas here, you'll hear about, I don't know, of course I can't think of an exact example right now, but where a duty manager or a head of a department somewhere has recognized a member of staff and just done something brilliant for them, and celebrated it and made them feel special, and all of those things that require thinking about. We do need to sort of just stop sometimes and think. I think sometimes just about the basics.
Yeah, and I think as well, having an environment where you own mistakes. You don't kind of shy away from the fact that, because they're going to be, it's inevitable. It doesn't matter how good your business is. There are going to be errors in the business pretty much on a daily basis. So, you might as well just embrace the fact that that's going to happen. Obviously, you'd hope that you get more right than you get wrong. That goes without saying. But when the stuff that does go wrong, rather than creating an atmosphere where people are scared to kind of acknowledge the fact that it happened, is just, let it all out. And give people the opportunity to say, right, well, what's the learning that we take from this? Why, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Or if it does, how do we kind of minimize the impact or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very lucky that I've been in these environments, and I was also sort of been trained or whatever it is to kind of recognize it. And again, I'm not saying that we get it right the whole time, but I just can't fathom how. And I know kitchens, I know they can be intimidating and difficult places. But I can't fathom why anyone would stay working in an environment that was just so theoretically awful,
Yeah.
and how people can just decide that that's the way they want to behave
Yeah.
in as individuals. But hopefully, I think we're kind of moving on from that. And I think we said it earlier.
Yeah.
In every industry, whether it's hospitality or not, there's always going to be good guys and bad guys, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think that the sector is eminently aware of the areas where there needs to be some focus, and there's a lot more being done about all the bad stuff now. And we, not that we can ever draw a line in the sand. We shouldn't be that naive, but at the same time, as we discussed at the beginning about, we've just got to we've got to be able to lambast the people for doing stuff badly, but not necessarily hang them out to dry. We've got to, give them the opportunity to re-educate and move forward. And maybe I'm being a naive idealist. I don't know, but to me, that should be the minimum standard.
Yeah, but yes, absolutely. I suppose there's an element though. If you're addressing that, then you're focusing on the bad again, which is good, but which is the right thing to do. It's not good. But the other thing that I think we miss an opportunity on is celebrating what we do. So I was lucky enough to be at the Hotelier of the Year lunch yesterday. So I don't know how many people there, probably around 100 people. I don't generally know how I got an invite, but there were the proper great and the good of the business. Like you name any proper hotel in the UK, and the director or the manager or whoever it was representing that property was there. I mean, like all the good hotels you could talk about.
Yeah.
And so
a massive congratulations to Daniel, by the way, who is an ex-guest of the show.
He made the most brilliant speech. And in fact, I'd love it to hear that speech again. It was really. I have to say, I haven't ever worked with him or really heard much about him before, but he's obviously hugely well regarded. The people that knew him in the room were telling me what a great guy he was, but his speech was just spot on. It was really, really personable. It's all about people. It was honest. He just seemed. I hope to meet him for like a face to face one day. But within that room, you have, I couldn't even, there must have been, judging by the age of most of them in there, 10,000 years of combined hospitality experience in there. And why do all these people stay? Why do all these people continue to be in our industry? And it's not just them, there are supposedly 3 million of us in the industry. Well, I bet 1 million of those have been in the industry for more than 5-10 years, and some of us are lifers. There has to be a reason why we stayed. It's not because Amazon wasn't around before we didn't want to go and drive vans for them. It was because it's because we love what we do, and we don't talk about that enough. I mean, think of all the experiences within the industry that we combined have had brilliant stuff, brilliant, fun stuff. The stories we tell, when I speak to friends who are not in the industry, and they're like, their work life is so dull. Sit behind a desk somewhere, looking at another spreadsheet, and we've got different people coming through our business every day. We've got famous people. We've got kids that have just got together and come out for their first glass of champagne together, and and everyone in between, and everyone's got an interesting
an 18-year-old a kid.
Yeah, so they
tells
you
everything you need to know about your age.
Yeah. Exactly. But I've always said the same thing. I used to love it. At Hotel de Van, you'd have, and in those days, people are, having the proper big long lunches. So you'd have all those guys come in, drinking their Bordeaux at lunch, and knock back a few brandies, and then onto some cigars, and then back to the office. And then, in the evening, you genuinely might have that. Let's call it a 20-year-old now. Then, okay, so they decided that he's decided or she's decided they really want to impress the other person. And where are they going to go? They're going to come to your place because they think that that's the best place in town, and they're going to come in and order a great drink because they want to impress the other person. They want to have it as a momentous point in their life, and they will remember that for all the time. And how special is that person has chosen to come? And I think, again, all the weird and wonderful and funny stories that we've all experienced that you just don't get in another industry, all the places you get to travel to, or the food and wine you get to drink, and you never hear about any of that.
Yeah, I know, because it's everything that we've talked about the fact that that's kind of everyday life for hospitality businesses. Is is creating these wonderful experiences for people. And so it kind of gets diluted, regrettably, because that's the norm. That's the things that we should be doing well and are doing well. So why talk about it? That's that's the mentality. And I'll tell you why we should talk about it, because there is absolutely nothing more honorable than to create experiences that make people feel special. It's just such a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
And we do this all the time.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I've heard Robin say this before, but there is definitely a kind of middle upper class view of our working in our industry. It's sort of frowned upon,
Yeah.
and it's so sad. There's so many great opportunities, and you know the youngsters we see coming through now. I mean, we have now, I think it's getting on for 60 apprentices, and they're bloody brilliant. They're responsible, they work hard, they're good fun,
Yeah.
all of these things that we give all the kids a hard time for.
Yeah.
And again, as our industry, we sit there being like, oh, well, no one works as hard as we did when we were young. And, these kids, no English people want to work. And I question that. Yes, I recognize that is out there. 100% there are people that should be wanting to work that don't want to work. But equally, there's loads of good people in all of our businesses.
Yeah.
That are doing really, really well. And so instead of coming out and saying, oh, so it's people that don't want to work, we can't find anyone, we should be saying, we've got these brilliant kids in our business. You could do the same type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think sometimes it's self-perpetuating, isn't it?
Yeah, and absolutely. And we definitely should not be wearing the fact that we worked our backsides off for 80 hours a week as a badge of honor. We were the stupid ones that did it without questioning it, frankly.
Yeah. Well, and society's changed, hasn't it? It's kind of no longer acceptable and all that kind of stuff. But yes, we shouldn't celebrate it, But it's made us kind of who we all are, hasn't it?
Yeah,
and totally. we have to evolve. So we have to be like, yes, that was all the cool stuff, and this is the bad stuff. So let's get rid of the bad stuff and let's put some more cool stuff on there. And hopefully in 100 years' time, we've got a much better kind of picture.
10 years' time, 10. Let's go back to being blindly ambitious.
Well, no, I just meant that, we're probably much better employers and human beings than we were 1,000 years ago. I don't know. Maybe we're not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Actually, one of the things that I love the most about your journey and your story is actually Robin's part in this, in terms of letting you fly early on, because actually what he then inherited was somebody who's gained not just kind of more skill and more capability from a hospitality perspective, but more life experience. And it's probably a much better human being than the original version of Tom. I might be being presumptuous, but these are kind of the things that happen as you develop yourself through your life. So he's reaped the benefit of actually letting you find your wings and go.
Yeah. Our industry by nature, you're kind of having to talk to a lot of people. And the benefit of having broadened your horizons and traveled or mixed with other people or whatever it might be, is that you have more points of reference when you are then talking to someone. So, on the floor in a business, you're going to have to speak to a huge variety of people. And it's challenging if you struggle to find common interests in a conversation. Otherwise it becomes very transactional, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Can I show you to your table or something like that? Whereas, if you can build a conversation with people, then it's so much more natural. And I do think that, and that's not just from a kind of work and skills perspective. That's just as a general kind of getting out there and experiencing different things. But also as a skills thing, if you can have done a bit of 5-star, if you can have done a bit of volume, if you can have done a bit of rooms, of course you become a much more well-rounded individual. So yeah, no, I was hugely thankful for him. I mean, I was again slightly bitter that he didn't beg me to stay,
but he would do that now. I'm sure he would do that now.
He's pretend we're getting off again. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. No, you mentioned in there about one of the things that's great about this industry is around kind of the stories and things like that happen. Have you got any funny stories that you can share with us?
probably the funnier ones are the ones that I shouldn't share, but there's kind of
Yes, that's always the way. Always the way.
yeah,
Another
yeah,
reason to come into hospitality, actually, because you'll never hear about the really good stuff unless you're
yeah,
having a pint with somebody that happens to work. You definitely won't be airing it in public.
yeah. I mean, there's always, the guests are always guests sort of treat hotels as though they're sort of completely, as though we're sort of not there. Sometimes, it's a
Yeah,
place to
yeah.
properly misbehave, and be, completely okay with it. So,
Mm,
what have we had? We had someone who drunk too much, and he ended up getting locked out of his room looking for the loo, I think, and peed in the corridor. And
nice.
we it was a company do, and so we didn't say anything, but just whacked a 250 quid charge in his bill for cleaning the carpet,
Right.
and then sent it into the office. And they called up and was like, "What's this really kind of laying into us? What's this £250 bill for? This is outrageous." We said, "Well, actually, it's for cleaning." They're like, "That's
Yeah.
unacceptable." So, we can send you the CCTV.
Yeah.
They paid up quite quickly.
Yeah.
We had,
Did you find out that was the CEO?
yeah. One I've always learned from is that we were always told when someone leaves something in a room, you never ever send it out. You always wait for them to call up. And I was like, I don't understand. Surely if someone leaves something in the room, you send it out because that's the more efficient and the best service. And they were like, well, we did it once, and this lady had left a pair of kind of red boots, like sort of thigh high boots, in a room. And
Right.
so, we bundled them up and we sent them off. And a couple of days later, we got a call from this lady, and she said, "Thank you very much for sending the boots, but they're not mine." And her husband had been staying with someone else, so
Ah.
we learned, learned
Oh.
learned not to do that. Uh, yeah, that sort of thing's relatively normal, I think. Well, not normal, but sort of the guests are terribly behaved.
Yeah, but the secret is discretion, isn't it? And that's why people come to hotels
Totally,
is for privacy and kind of it is one of those things. Whatever they get up to behind closed doors, obviously within reason. Yeah, that's away from their house. They turn into different people, don't they?
completely. You can't, it's not our job to judge someone, is it? And their kind of
No,
personal circumstances. And when I was at
absolutely.
Hotel down in Brighton, we had a really small car parking space. Like we had to get 9 cars in there, and it was always complete carnage because you could never stack the cars anywhere waiting to get in. So we used to have a bag of keys, and you used to have to go and move 5 cars to get 1 car out. And someone famously managed to put someone else's keys in the boot of another car that then got driven off. So we had that.
God.
Someone wrecked we used to be slightly naughty and park when we were full in our car park. We'd park it around the corner in another car park,
Right.
and the porter was bringing the car out, and I think it was a 2-day-old Ferrari, and he just gunned it a little too hard, but he did it on like a drain cover, so they're a bit slicker than a road,
Right.
and he lost control of the car and put it through the railings on Brighton seafront.
Oh
Had to come back
God.
and say to the guy, "I'm sorry, but your car's ruined."
That actually is probably right there is the most stressful job that exists in the world is being because like the principle of yeah, you get to park some really cool cars, but geez, I'd be stressed that I was going to do exactly that. It's just
The most stressful
bin it
part,
somewhere.
no, the most stressful job is being the person that's got to go and tell the
Yeah,
owner that the
that's
porter's
true.
put their car through. That is not a happy experience.
No,
So yeah, like I don't know. I mean, you have all of those things, but that's the sort of variety that makes the job fun, isn't it? It's
yeah. And the fact that you could do this job until the end of your time and you'd still be dealing with original situations.
completely, and stuff that shock. I know people say that stuff doesn't shock you anymore, but I don't believe that in our industry.
Yeah. Might be desensitized to some extent.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's cool. You've given us a few there, so I salute
Got
you.
more. I've got more, but I'll stop at that one. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
probably safer.
well,
I haven't got anyone into trouble, and I'm not in trouble, so
yeah,
I think we'll
indeed,
be okay.
absolutely. And we'll just talk about the real stories over a pint sometime. That's what
Yeah.
we'll do. No, that's cool. Before I let you go, just sort of I thought it'd be interesting to find out what's the future got in store for you. What's the next year looking like?
Cool. I think the next year for us will be, it's a kind of, it's a consolidation period for us, and touch wood, nothing else kind of major in terms of the business stopping. But it's everything, every day is new now, isn't it? In terms of, you don't know what's around the corner, and
Yeah.
our industry is very, very different from one business to the next. And we are referred to as the hospitality industry, but that's a very broad range of businesses. So talking to some of these guys in London yesterday, they are, all the hotels are capping occupancy because they can't service the rooms. So
Yeah.
And that's kind of a major revenue issue. But I don't see that changing. Where are you suddenly going to get 5,000 housekeepers from for London? Like, it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
the business plan for London for I don't know what, 2-3 years is going to be 60% occupancy. For us, we've been very, very lucky in terms of our locations have meant that we've been desirable places to come to. We have a very kind of active and interactive following from our guests. So, we're able to engage them quite quickly and get them out to the hotels and so on. So we've been very, very lucky. I think the coming year will be quite a lot of what's going to happen next month, and let's not try and be too over ambitious, and let's do what we do. Robin has the phrase, stick to your knitting. We're going to stick to our knitting, and we're not going to do anything crazy, and we're going to make sure that every day we don't try and thrash the business, that we do the basic things well. And it's too easy to overlook that. We've got new staff coming in. We'll always have new staff coming in. And we need to remember that the basics are the foundation of our business. There are 1,000 things that happen in a restaurant every single day that make sure that a service goes smoothly. And they're all very, very simple things in their own right. You don't need to be a brain surgeon to work them out, but you do need to have experience and a good system in order to make sure that all those 1,000 things happen. And we started calling it the monotony of excellence, and the repetition required to ensure that everything is done properly. And it can be boring because for the 50th day in a row, I've got to make sure that X, Y, and Z happens. But it's only because that happens that we are successful at the end of the day. So we've got our festivals back on this year, which will be good fun. So our Smokesman Cup Festival. So that's 2 of them are 5,000 and 1 of them is 3,000, I think. So
Brilliant.
Yeah, that kind of takes it out of our comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, just continuing to do what we do and enjoy it, I think, would be our kind of mantra this.
Yeah. I think it is one of those things, isn't it? Like, one, it's just nice to be kind of back doing what you do. 2, you've kind of got to just keep a tiny little eye on what's going on, without getting too carried away, just in case. All the noises for me sound like we hopefully should be able to make it through winter without any regression. But there's just this cautious optimism, isn't it? That's kind of the buzzwords.
I can only speak for ourselves, and I would say, yeah, absolutely. We're nice and busy. It looks like it's going to be that way next year in the coming months, and we certainly can't predict, either micro or macro things that happen that might affect it. But I equally know that there are some people out there. I'm certain there are people out there that are finding it really, really tough at the moment. Things aren't back to normal. There isn't any bloody optimism because they're in a place or a type of business that it hasn't bounced back yet. And so I sort of I feel for people in that position, because it's bloody brutal. And we're very, very lucky that we've got a big size team where we've got lots of people to rely on and support, and different kind of functions around HR and accounts and all of these guys that do brilliant stuff in the background. Whereas a sort of smaller company, they haven't got HR, they haven't got anyone to go out and find them 5 members of staff tomorrow, because they're too busy trying to service the restaurant themselves to make a bit of money to pay back all the money that they've lost. So, it's I have no doubt that the next year will be challenging for all of us, but some more than others. And I kind of don't want to kind of end this on a negative. So I'll switch it back round and say that we're super excited about the year coming ahead. Like, as a business, I think there's going to be loads on. I think people are well up for coming out and eating and having fun and drinking lots and coming to things like our festival. So I'm well up for it.
Yeah, I also think that on the back of all of this, it's actually there's never been a better time to join hospitality, like as a career, because the industry needs you. The industry needs good people who give a monkeys about what they're doing And you could absolutely fly quicker than in any other time in the world just by, being a grafter and being able to control your attitude and really knuckle down and crack on.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. And
yeah,
also, like, ask questions, try and be inquisitive. The people that move through our business quicker are the ones that ask questions and learn.
yeah,
And there's so much opportunity to learn, about basic stuff in our life, like food and wine. And, with us, it's great because we've got all the kitchen gardens. So we're growing stuff on site. There's all the sort of, sustainability is a much bigger word than growing your own food. But, there's lots of stuff that that will be the next big thing in our industry. Not in the coming year and the coming 10 years will be the radical change that the whole kind of, again, sustainability is too general a word for it, but the whole sort of movement will happen in our industry.
yeah.
And the nice thing about our industry as well is, you can be in it and you can be in accounts, you can be in HR, you can be in operations, you can be in sales, you can be in events. There's loads of kind of different
Absolutely.
things. So yeah, I think we've got a great opportunity to kind of reposition ourselves in the coming months and years for future members of the industry.
Here. Yeah. Well,
Fingers crossed.
absolutely. And final question before I let you on your merry way: what are you actually knitting at the moment?
That's a tough question. I did try knitting once actually, but I dropped too many stitches. Let's just leave it like that.
Yeah, it's a great saying, really great saying. No, brilliant. If people would like to get a hold of you to learn more about the company, you, or just generally chew the fat about all things hospitality, what's the best method for them to do that?
They can certainly email me, although that's quite a sort of old dull way of doing it, isn't it? You can WhatsApp, Twitter, or hit me on Instagram. I don't know, any way you want to do it, really. My email is tom.ross@thepighotel.com. I sort of fanny around on Instagram a little bit. I don't do the hellhole of Twitter. I look at LinkedIn about once a month, or you can just phone me. Be nice to chat.
Yeah. God, you are old school, aren't you?
Okay, Zoom. Sorry, you can Zoom me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. I really, really appreciate you giving us your time today. It's a cracking story you've still got obviously a hell of a lot to offer yet, but I wish you and the company all the success in the world. I think what you guys are doing is your reputation is amazing, and it continues to develop forward. So I take my hat off to you all.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today.
You're very welcome. Cheers, Tom. Take care.
Bye, Phil. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. And there we have it, a fabulous journey from Tom with a bit of international travel thrown in for good measure, and a journey that has taken him to some truly exceptional places to work, including where he finds himself now. We'll be back next Wednesday with our 100th episode, where we'll be doing something a little bit different, but until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you then.